So guys, what's going on? Guys, I've had a request on Instagram about a fantasy fight between... I've done this fantasy fight before, ages ago, between Naseem and Manny Pacquiao. Who would I favor in that fight? Manny Pacquiao is a legend. Manny Pacquiao is one of the all-time great boxers. I personally have him in the top 10, top 5. If we want to place him. Naseem Hamed was an unbelievable talent as well. Great fighter. Great. I think he didn't have the... I don't think he had a great resume in terms of the fighters that were fighting in around that time, but he still did very well. He was a very hard-hitting featherweight, unorthodox style, and a very, very big puncher. Very, very big puncher. A massive puncher at featherweight. And he was an elite featherweight, an exceptional talent. I initially, I don't know if you guys know, Naseem Hamed was the first boxer that I ever knew. I didn't ever watch him during, his time. It was probably before my time. However, Naseem Hamed, there used to be a video game called the Prince Naseem Hamed game, and I thought Naseem Hamed was I thought he was the best ever, and because I used to play that game. But at that point, I didn't know much about boxing. But obviously now that I'm into boxing and I started studying, Naseem Hamed was a great fighter. But I do think some of the British fans, because of what Naseem brought outside of the ring, the way he used to speak, the charisma, the ring walks and the entrances, he was a showman, he was an entertainer, he was more than just a fighter. Fighters, right? They entertain in the ring like Nas did. He entertained in the ring. But this guy, just the whole build-up and the whole package and everything around Naseem Hamed, he was such a showman, such an entertainer, just a flashy, really, just a great entertainer. He was so much of an entertainer than a boxer. He was just a brilliant kind of showman, and people loved him. They loved that. A lot of people hated him as well. I do think when he stepped up, his best guy that he fought on his record was definitely Marco Antonio Barrera, and Barrera beat him quite handily. If I'm honest with you, it was quite a one-sided fight. Naseem made a lot of excuses after that fight about his weight. Now I don't know whether that was a big major factor. Personally, I think Barrera would have beat him anyway. I think Barrera was an elite fighter, 3-weight world champion. I think Barrera just had... I think his fundamentals were too good, and I think he was just too good a fighter for Naseem Hamed. I like Naseem Hamed. I was a fan of Naseem Hamed, but I keep it real. I think Barrera would have beat Naseem Hamed, if I'm honest with you. And Barrera, for me, was just too good. And I think he may have been too good regardless of whether Naseem was at his 100%, whether he was at 80%, whatever. I think he would have beaten Naseem. I think he was a better fighter. And it's with a heavy heart I say that, because I don't really like saying that, because Naseem was a guy that I looked up to. But when it comes to that particular fight, I think Barrera would have beat him regardless of what weight, of whether he was not at it, whether he was partying, whether he was focused. I think even if he was focused, even if he was 100%, even if he was with Brendan Ingle, I still think that Naseem would have got beat in that fight. That's just my personal opinion. Some of you may disagree. I just think Barrera was a better fighter. He was more rounded, and I believe he was a great. In the end, if you look at Barrera's career, Barrera went on to become an all-time great, and really, Naseem kind of failed to. I think a lot of people rate Naseem very highly, and listen, fair enough, he was a great fighter, no doubt about it. But was he an all-time great? I don't think so. I don't think he's an... Would you put him in the same league as like a Mayweather, Pacquiao, Barrera? You wouldn't really. You wouldn't. A Canelo now. Would you put him in that same kind of category? I personally wouldn't. But again, everyone has their own opinion. Everyone has their the way they view Naseem. I think he was a great fighter and a great entertainer, a great showman. Manny Pacquiao, he was no nonsense, straight down to business. Manny Pacquiao was probably one of the fastest hands, fastest feet, just unbelievable power, just ferocious, explosive, and he was a monster. Great chin, tough guy. If they were to fight at featherweight, Who would I favor? Manny Pacquiao, man. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I just think Manny Pacquiao was his foot speed, his hand speed, his power. Manny Pacquiao troubles welterweight with his power. What would he have done to a smaller Naseem Hamed? I just think Manny Pacquiao by knockout. Like I said again, I don't really like saying that because Naseem was a guy that I was inspired by when I was younger, playing his video game, and he was a great fighter. But but again, Manny Pacquiao is a guy that inspired me as well. So being fair here, I just don't see how Naseem wins that fight. I think Naseem would get, he would get beaten badly. If I'm honest with you, I think it would be worse than the Barrera fight. Because Barrera wasn't as fast as Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao was very powerful and very fast. Very fast of feet. And that kind of unorthodox style, right? That kind of unorthodox style wouldn't work against someone like Manny Pacquiao. It might work against lesser fighters, but when you look at the two top fighters that Naseem, if you look at the two best guys, right, Naseem fought in his career were Kevin Kelly and Marco and Antonio Barrera. Kevin Kelly had Naseem down a couple of times in that fight. And that fight was a 50-50 kind of shootout. Could have gone either way. Barrera just, again, for me, just battered him. He just battered Naseem. And it was quite a one-sided fight, the Barrera fight. If we look at it, it was quite a beatdown from Barrera. And it was kind of, a lot of people use the word schooled. I think that's the right word. Barrera did school Naseem Hamed in that fight. And I just felt like Naseem didn't have, when his style wasn't working, he didn't have a plan B. He didn't know what to do because Barrera was just outsmarting him. And I think Manny Pacquiao would probably be even worse. I actually would have Manny Pacquiao by knockout in that fight. Just because I think Manny Pacquiao is a lot faster. He's a lot more spiteful than Barrera, and he punches harder than Barrera, right? So personally, I don't see Naseem going the distance in that fight, and I think Manny Pacquiao would win that fight via knockout. Via knockout, I think Manny Pacquiao wins via knockout. And some people may say, oh no, Naseem, when he was under Brendan Ingle, he was phenomenal, he was formidable. Yes, but against certain kind of opponents, not against Manny Pacquiao or not against Barrera's, he wasn't. I'm not sure if Brendan was in the corner when he fought Kevin Kelly. Like that, he got put down heavily in those fights, in that fight as well. But, fair enough. Listen, Kevin Kelly was a top fighter. So for him to win that fight showed he had power. He had great movement. Yeah, that's all great. But when we're talking about like Barrera and we're talking about Pacquiao, now we're talking about all-time greats. We're talking about guys that are different level to the opponents he was fighting. And I just don't think Naseem was as good as those guys. And that's why I feel like those guys, Barrera beat him, and I think Pacquiao would have also beat him. I think Pacquiao would have probably beat him a lot worse. Pacquiao knocked out, I believe he stopped Barrera, and I just think that Pacquiao was he was a different kind of beast, and at that kind of weight, Pacquiao would have been even more ferocious. Even Pacquiao moved up through the weights, and he was devastating. He was devastating, and I just don't think Naseem would have been able to handle the speed, the movement, the power. I just think he would be fighting a guy that's quicker than him, faster than him, and more powerful than him. Pacquiao was probably quicker, faster, definitely faster, quicker hands. Foot speed, Naseem had very, very fast feet. But in terms of the power, Pacquiao's power carried to welterweight. So I just don't see how. But Pacquiao beat Miguel Cotto. Imagine Naseem against Miguel Cotto. It'd be like, Cotto would butcher, what I mean? It wouldn't even be a fight. So this is what I'm saying, that Pacquiao was different level. He was a different level of a fighter. Like I said, for me, a legend, like an all-time great, a guy that goes down probably top 10, top 5. You could have him in history. He was that good. 8 division world champion. Never been done before. I just don't think Naseem would have been able to cope with someone like Manny Pacquiao. I don't. I think his speed, his power, hand speed. Well, it's just I just don't think that fight would have ended well for Naseem. I rate Naseem Hamed very highly, but again against a certain type of opponent, not against Manny Pacquiao. I know some people say, well, Naseem could have given Floyd. No, see, those guys are kind of on a different level, on a different scale to Naseem and the guys that Naseem was fighting. So this is what the problem is. When a guy like Naseem, who got to world level, won world championship, unified the division, right? Everybody thinks, oh, they're mustard and they're really good. But that was done against a certain level of opponent, right? But now when you start talking about like all-time greats and elite fighters, elite pound-for-pound fighters, it becomes a different ball game. I don't think Naseem against the elite pound-for-pound fighters like a Mayweather, like a Barrera, like a Pacquiao, I don't think he beats them, personally. I think he was good at like world-class level. I think he was, like you could say, the best of the world class. But in terms of the elite guys, I don't think Naseem, personally, for me, he was an elite featherweight. I don't believe he was an elite fighter. Like I said, for me, elite fighters are like Canelo, Mayweather, Pacquiao, Barrera, guys like that. I don't think Naseem fits into that kind of category. Naseem was like the top of the world class guys. He was a world class fighter. But for me, I just don't think he fit into that next bracket of fighters like a Canelo, Mayweather, Pacquiao, you know, and Andre, you know, guys like these, Andre Ward, Lennox Lewis, you could put in there. He was an exceptional, you know, a fighter as well. I just don't think Naseem kind of fitted into that category. I think he was a great showman, great entertainer, and a great fighter, great knockout power at featherweight. But I just think Manny Pacquiao is something else. I think those guys are a bit special. Those pound-for-pound elite guys, I just don't think Naseem would have been able to beat them. But listen, if you think I'm wrong, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to have a debate with you if you think that Naseem would have beaten Manny Pacquiao. I don't think so. What do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.